Uh, Maybe what they're seeing and how they're seeing it, and also video games. I'm hearing more and more people say the level of violence on video games is really shaping young people's thoughts.
Well, I knew it would come to this. Somehow, they'd get me to talk about politics. God damn it. Okay, so before I get into any of this, in any way, let's make some things clear. I'm not about to give you guys my hot take on things like gun control or the current political climate of this country. I think you probably already have enough self-proclaimed political experts in your life. You don't need another one. And this has been a long-standing issue that has crossed the political aisle. Let's keep it in mind. You know, Hillary Clinton gave a pretty infamous speech on violent video games a few years ago. This isn't a Republican versus Democrat thing, guys, okay? We're going to keep things focused on the task at hand, which is the topic of video game violence, specifically its role in mass shootings. So President Trump is planning to meet with members of the video game industry this Thursday, as of the time of this recording, to discuss the impact of video game violence on players. Members of the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, will be attending, and they have said they look forward to having, quote, fact-based conversation. This most recent school shooting in Florida obviously has sparked a lot of these discussions, and while this Trump meeting is upcoming, it's supposed to take place again this Thursday, this stuff has been getting pretty serious already, which is why I do want to start covering it and keeping an eye on what develops. Some of you may be aware that soon after this recent shooting took place, this House rep from Rhode Island, Robert Nardilio, proposed a bill that would tax violent video games, specifically any game with an M rating, an additional 10%. Stuff like this really scares me, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, as I'm sure you've seen many people explain, out of the countless studies, no one, and I mean no one, has ever been able to establish a credible link to video game violence and actual violence. They have to fall back on words like aggression, aggressive behavior, which is obviously a much more broad term. All sorts of things can make you aggressive, pretty much anything that irritates you. Even in video games, the game doesn't have to have any violence. It could be, you know, an annoying jump in a Mario game. In my opinion, when it comes to these raised levels of aggression when people play video games, it doesn't actually have anything to do with the violence. It has to do with the competitive nature of it all. Anytime we feel like we are losing or at the risk of losing, when there's something to be won, we become more aggressive. But let's be real, violent video games are just the most recent media to be targeted by old people who don't understand them, whether it be politicians, the mainstream media. Well, that's CNN, so nobody obviously would have read that, but it's a very old story, just told in a different way. Back in the day, it was rock and roll music, it was the devil's music, comic books were rotting kids' brains. Jesus Christ, nowadays parents can only dream of getting their kid to read anything, including comics. Video games are just the most recent thing that these people don't understand. Now, is that to say they have absolutely no impact on anyone, and people, no matter how old, should be playing them? No, of course not. But like movies, we already have a ratings board in place, and these M-rated games aren't supposed to be sold to kids anyway. I've always said, if there's a problem with kids getting access to mature games, well, you only have to look as far as who's buying them the damn games. Typically, their parents. And especially with pretty much all modern consoles offering some sort of parental control options, this shouldn't even be a problem today. I'd love to know what percentage of parents who buy their kids a video game system actually bother to set up the parental controls. They can't take 10 minutes to do that, but they'll rage war for years on companies who make the actual games because they don't want their kids to be playing them. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I believe the systems in place are more than fine. If the rules of the ESRB are followed, we shouldn't have any problems with kids who aren't supposed to be playing these games getting their hands on them. And obviously there hasn't been any causality between video game violence and actual violence proven to this point, at least nothing credible. But the problem is, logic and reason, facts and statistics, they rarely stand in the way of garbage lawmaking, especially when the topic is so hot button as these mass shootings are right now. People are looking to take down anything that might even be slightly related. And here's why things like this already proposed tax are a huge problem. Sure, right now it's only in one place. 10%, maybe to some of you, isn't so bad. Those of you who follow me know I don't like feeling I paid a dime more than a game is worth, so I'd be livid just from that. But think about this for a moment. If this becomes a trend, taxing violent video games, forcing consumers to pay more for them, how might that affect the industry as a whole? I mean, especially nowadays, with the budgets of some of these games, you can't tell me this wouldn't enter the conversation. You know, do we as a company want to risk losing sales because people don't want to pay more for this game? Are we better off toning down the violence or explicit content so we can avoid this tax? You would absolutely be crippling the creativity of these game makers. I mean, who wants to play a T-rated Grand Theft Auto? Oh, I know, how about a nice E for everyone Doom? Disgusting, just to think about. This is where the real issues lie. Obviously, none of these lawmakers or the people influencing them, again, the media, moms who are too busy getting loaded on wine all day to pay attention to what their kid is doing. Oh, just get rid of all those violent video games so I don't have to bother getting involved with my kid's life. You know what? Maybe don't have kids, you lush. But yeah, none of them give a damn about this industry. Again, it's like rock and roll or comics before it. They have no respect for video games, not even in the slightest. Hell, if video games disappeared tomorrow, they'd probably consider it a victory. And obviously, I do care. You guys care. This is one of those things that goes beyond stupid fanboy wars and crap. All of us should be united here. None of us wants to see the industry drastically changed by people who know nothing about it. So we have to keep an eye on this as it develops, because I do think there is possible risk here of change happening as a result. It's going to be interesting to note what goes on in this upcoming meeting and beyond. And with that, this video is a wrap. I just wanted to voice my concerns on where this may lead, as well as let everyone know I am watching it, even though I haven't addressed it until now. And I will continue to discuss any new developments. So let me know your thoughts on the video game violence debate in the comments. As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.